Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Dr. Glenn Vo. Welcome to another episode of the Nifty Thrifty Dentist podcast. Now, I am super excited to have my guests on, but before I even introduce these lovely ladies, I want to ask you a couple of questions here. The first thing is would you be interested in a coaching program that helped you with overwhelm, stress, and exhaustion? What if there was a coaching program out there that not only focused as you as the visionary, the owner of the practice, but also your team, promoting team wellness? And what if I told you that this coaching program not only delivered its content through retreats and in-person events, but what if there's also a virtual option as well? If you are interested in any of those things, you're going to be super excited about today's episode because I have the founders of the Mentor Coaching Program, Dr. Laura, Dr. Karen in the house. Ladies, welcome to the Nifty Thrifty Dentist podcast.
Woo! Wow, that was an introduction. I love it. Thank you, Glenn. It's good to
All
be here.
right. And Karen, thank you for being here. I guess
Yeah.
I took your breath away there with that introduction there. So I'll go ahead and talk for you there. But ladies, thank you so much for being here. I've heard so much about you guys and about the amazing things you're doing. And when I learned about your coaching program, I was like, wow, there's so many coaches out there that deal with growing your practice, right? Or maybe leadership, communication, so many different things. And then there's like this huge gap here when it comes to just, you know, wellness and dealing with all the stress that happens as a business owner. And of course, we're not even going to talk about the stress and the overwhelm and the exhaustion we get for family and personal as well, right? So I'm so excited to have you guys on because you guys are feeling this need here. So I'm going to start off with you, Laura, because we've met before. We kind of know each other. Laura, tell me, and then we're going to shift over to you, Karen. Tell me, what is the idea behind the Mint Door? What is the Mint Door? I know I kind of teased that the audience about what you guys do, but if you can go a little bit more specifics there, and then after that, Karen, if you can put in your two cents as far as what the Mint Door is.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about the Mentor. This is like one of our favorite passions, obviously. And it started with a mutual friendship that Karen and I kind of cultivated. And we had so many of the same experiences, very similar experiences within dentistry, even though we practiced completely different. Karen was in the UK, and I'll let her tell that story. I was here in the States, and but one thing that was common with us is we both had burnout and significant amounts of it, and so much so that we didn't really enjoy dentistry. And so fast forward, we both became life coaches, and through our life coach training, we had the realization that had we had the tools and skills and mindset that life coaching taught us, we would have transferred the burnout in a much healthier way. Mm-hmm. In other words, we wouldn't have taken out the stress, that wouldn't have left. We wouldn't have taken out the day-to-day duties and things that a dentist has to do. But what we would have done was we would have become sort of anti-fragile to them, where we were able to bounce back. We were able to get stronger with the challenges. We were able to enjoy and have a fulfilled, holistic life, not just in our profession, but in our personal way as well. And so that was the birth of the Mint Door. We said we can bring this to dentistry. And Karen, I'll let you continue on.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. So bringing it to dentistry, initially when we first went into this, we were looking at it very much from the perspective of the dentist, because that's who we were. And very quickly, we realized and found that it's not just the dentist that makes the practice successful. It's that whole team. And obviously, we'd had an appreciation of that before. But Laura and I are in a privileged position where we get to talk to team members of dental teams every day. And by hearing their stories and their challenges and what they were facing, we realized that This is a whole practice approach to total holistic well-being. And that just doesn't mean it's not the soft skills of, just mindfulness and meditation and what people may think as wellness as being. This is helping people think about who they are as whole people. Because like Laura said, it's not, I think you said, Glenn, that it's not just who we are at work. We have that whole family piece. And we can't just put that down when we walk into work, and we can try, but it's still there in the back of your brains when you're sat down preparing a crown prep on whatever tooth. Little thoughts come into your head, things are still ticking over that are there, and that applies for every member of that dental team. So to be able to bring a program to whole practices that we can increase the success of their practice by focusing on the well-being of their team, that's been for us has been the magic key, really.
I absolutely love that. And I love the fact that you guys are so focused on also including the team. If you look at all the different coaching programs, and we're all in different Facebook communities and other communities, and we go to events as well, you're always hearing people say, hey, you got to include your team, right? You want to increase the case acceptance. You got to get training for yourself, but you got to include the team. We talk about all these things. And then when we're thinking about getting life coaching, getting, whether that's coaching to become like effective leader or just be able to better community. Whenever we think about that, we always say, okay, I got to work on myself. I got to do myself. And a lot of times we don't include the team. And then we realize the dynamics and the practice, the fact that you both are dentists and have been in these environments. It just blows my mind how a lot of times we're like, okay, I'm going to work on me. And then you come back and they're like, okay, why is everybody else having some issues there? You leave that out. Is that the reason? And again, I'll start with you, Karen, then Laura, if you can jump in there. But is that the reason why you guys are so focused on bringing the team aspect in there? Is because it's so integral in the practice setting?
Yeah, 100%, because everybody in the practice has a valuable role to play. And, we all have heard, people have a star hygienist and they have, an incredible hygiene team that goes with that. Without that team working at their full capacity, and they can't do that unless they're well, mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever so that's why this is so important, because we meet assistants and hygienists and front office people every day who are going through things that are putting pressures on them, which are then affecting the way that they work. And so what we can do is we can support them in these challenges, whether it's a work challenge or a personal challenge. And there's an incredible statistic that came from the World Wellbeing Movement, which is based at the University of Oxford in England. And that's if you can increase the happiness of an individual employee by 1 point, you're going to increase that employee's productivity by 12%.
I love that stat because
Mhm.
you guys know how dentists are, right? Dentists. I mean, we're all dentists here, and we're scientists, and we want to know the proof. We want to know what the result is. Like, look, we're gonna do this crown prep, and it's gonna help this tooth, right? Or we're gonna do this root canal. It's gonna help save this tooth. And a lot of times people are thinking of more of like, okay, what kind of ROI am I getting? And I love that the fact that you just share that right there, right? Which is
Yeah.
true. Which is true if you think about it. If you're happier, you're going to perform better, right? If we use it on ourselves, it makes total sense. And I love the fact that you laid that out because naturally dentists are like they notoriously don't want to spend coaching, but what you don't realize is if you're able to coach yourself up, you're actually like maybe you're at this certain level, but you really could be at this level if you're at optimum there. So I love that. And so again, Laura, I mean, you also just going through this whole journey yourself, but also working with team members as well. Talk about some of the things that you've seen, like again, you know, being able to include the team and leveling up the team, whether that be with your current clients or what you've seen just as an observer as well.
Yeah, thanks. It's so important. I think it's really important to highlight the fact that the dentist just has so much capacity, right?
Yeah.
They've got so much on their mind. They're wearing so many hats throughout the day. And typically, and I know I found this in my practice, they really care about their team. They absolutely 100% care, but at the end of the day, there just isn't a lot of space. There
Mhm.
isn't a lot of energy to sometimes deal with the things that are going on with their team members. And that's where Karen and I really come in and help to unburden that dentist and support them with their team in that. An example, when I was practicing, I had an assistant who all day was rolling her eyes and sighing. And all day I told myself there was never a break to talk to her, right? It was just a typical go, go, go day. And all day I told myself that she was annoyed with me, that there was something that I had done. And at the end of the day, when I finally had a chance to talk with her, it was that she had pulled a muscle in her back over the weekend breaking leaves. So she was in pain.
Wow.
And, and it was just, had I had just a moment to just focus on her and her total well being, my day and my energy would have been so much better. We had a client come to us with their star hygienist who was just not acting right. And it turns out that she was going through a divorce and she wasn't bringing that information to the team, but her energy was showing it. And with some coaching and some support, she was able to really figure out how to handle this life transition in a way that she could still bring her best self to work.
Wow, that's
And
such
so
an amazing.
yeah, these are the ways that you can support the well-being of your team so that they can then feel that you really care about them.
I love that. It's such an amazing story. And actually I'm gonna follow up asking both of you guys here. Share with us, because again, like that particular story, think about how many times, and I'm just thinking about my own practice, but I know most dental practice owners can relate to this. Like how many times where, maybe there was a conflict or something like that, and you end up losing a team member, and maybe it was a good team member, and maybe we wrote it off as, you know what, like they just didn't fit the culture. I wonder how many times that could have been avoided if there was just like a little bit deeper level of understanding and empathy there. And imagine like you would still have that great team members. I want to start with you, Laura, and then Karen, if you can jump in. Like with the clients that you've worked with, how many times have you been able to kind of you use that example of the hygienist? If you have another example, like where you actually salvaged kind of like a relationship that was going on, a team relationship that could have gone south, but because the practice owner invested in working with you two, that they're able to kind of keep that team member and really get into another level of understanding and better the work relationship there. Could you share like another example with us,
Yeah.
if you guys
Yeah,
can?
this is such a great question, and thanks for letting us highlight it because this is what lights us up. This is what brings us such joy. But we had a practice that had three team leads. A lead for hygiene, a lead for assistance, and a lead for front office. And they had extremely different communication styles. And so when they got together to have meetings, they butted heads and it was impacting the entire practice. The everybody felt it. It was just this tension. People were walking on eggshells all day. And so this owner invested in coaching for these three, and we coached them individually first and really found out what their communication styles were. And then we got them together and kind of just went through that information and figured out maybe some ways that they could communicate with each other so that they understood each other. One person needed the answer right now. Another person liked to take in the information and think about it and come back with the information. And the other person just didn't like conflict at all. And so as soon as she felt that confrontation, she was just shut down. And so by understanding this about each other, they could adapt and change how they communicated. And they became best friends and elevated the success of that practice exponentially.
Wow, that's amazing. Karen, is there a coaching story that you can share with us to kind of highlight
Yeah.
how, if we're willing to invest a little bit, um, we could keep some of these great team members who are good team members, but for some reason, there's a little bit of conflict there. And unfortunately, a lot of times as dental practice owners, and I've been guilty of this too, just writing it off as like, they're just too hard to deal with. They don't fit the
Mhm.
culture. I'm just going to cut bait. instead of like spending a little bit more time and diving deeper and seeing what's going on there. Can you share a story on your end, Karen?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, as Laura said, this to us is like why we do what we do, because this is real life with real people. Um, so we were working with a practice. It was a large practice, and there was one team member who would always react in a big way to something that she didn't like. And that was kind of rubbing people up the wrong way. Other team members would complain about her to the dentist, saying, she makes me feel this way, she makes me feel that way, she's hot-headed, she's whatever. And we got the opportunity to sit down with her. And I mean, this is just so phenomenal that in one session, we were able to dive a little bit deeper with her and work out that what is the reason of and reflect on her. Why is this happening? Why are you doing this? She cares so deeply about doing things the right way and to the letter of the law. And if it's something that's regarding HIPAA, if it's something that's regarding a sterilization protocol, if it's whatever, if it's written down in a law somewhere, she wants to follow that law, quite rightly, to the T, because we have to. But when it wasn't happening that way, she would get so riled up and she would just blow with it. And that's what people didn't like. And the dentist of the practice really was getting to a point where she's thinking, this team member, how long can they stay? Because they're upsetting everybody else. But within one session and giving her some practical strategies and tools and techniques and analyzing what it was for her and how that made her feel in the moment, by the time I met her again on her second session, she said that the problem had resolved itself. And the dental practice owner also, she told us it's looked after, it's done. She's so much better. So we checked in with her for a little bit longer, but it just turned around the life of one person, but then impacted the rest of the team.
I absolutely love that. And again, reason why I want to highlight these stories is I think most of us, most of the audience who are watching and listening to this podcast, we see the benefit of some kind of coaching, right? If you're a dentist, you understand that. You take CE classes, right? When you go to CE class, you're getting coached on doing a particular procedure, or if you work with someone to grow your practice. And so, again, I want everyone to kind of shift their mindset a little bit, right? I mean, when you think about, okay, coaching, all right, you got the business coaching, maybe you have a personal trainer that's physical, right? And so, what I told Laura and Karen when I first met them, I was like, man, you guys could be like on like a board, like every practice's board, right? Like on your board, you have a board of advisors, you have someone on the business
Mhm.
side, and maybe it's, you know, more on the physical side, physical training and stuff like that. And then there should be something for like wellness and just like this mindset. And so for those who are watching this, I want you guys to kind of open your mind and think about it in those lens. So with that being said, I'm going to ask you both, um, what are your expectations of someone who wants to reach out to you and possibly engage and get some coaching from Mint? Because again, much like there's a dentist for everybody, right? You can't be
Mhm.
everybody's dentist, right? Um, I would imagine it's the same thing with coaching there. And so just to make sure that the right people are reaching out to you, what are your expectations? Karen, I'll start with you and then Laura. What are your expectations for someone who's okay, curious about this? What would you expect from them? Right? Maybe it is show up to the actual sessions, right? So what are your expectations for those who are curious and might want to work with you too?
Well, our first expectation would be is that you are somebody who is looking to elevate your already successful practice to an even higher level. That's really important that you're looking to how do you get just that bit better that maybe you've been missing and you don't quite know how can I get that just that bit better. So that's first of all the most important thing. And we really, I mean, one of the essential parts of this process is that we have a close working relationship with the dentist or the practice owner, because it doesn't work without the practice owner being involved. So you can't say, oh, my team need help, but I'm really not that bothered. Leave me out. no, we need you to be in on this too. So being a dentist who somebody's like, yes, I'm all in. I mean, not all in, you'd have to be all in on a lot of time, but emotionally and your buy-in has to be there to say, yeah, this is going to work and this is what we're going to prioritize is looking after these people. So somebody who really cares about their team.
Absolutely. And Laura?
Yeah, I would say ditto in the sense that somebody that's ready to close the gap really between where they are and where they know they can be, and also supporting their team in doing that. I think that's huge, where you see that potential in somebody and you're ready to support them to take ownership of that potential and close their own gap. And so I think that that's critical. I think it's also critical to have curiosity and a willingness to look outside the box and do things a little bit differently, and be willing to listen to that inner voice that's telling you that this could be better.
I love that. And again, thank you so much for sharing that because I think a lot of people who are watching and listening right now, maybe this is something that's really new to them. But I think that, especially with dentists, a lot of times people think dentists are very rigid and they're not willing to try something different. Look, at one time, you were a pre-dental student and you knew nothing, right? And then you had to open your mind and learn how to prep a tooth and learn how to do all these things. And then when you graduated, you had to learn how to talk to people a certain way. So believe it or not, we are actually very open to learning new things and to level up, right? So again, I think that's the main thing there is to see if you're willing to open and level up and also invest in your team. Now, before we go to how to reach out to you two and how to become, a client of Mentor Coaching or at least learning more, we're going to put that aside. And for those who are watching and listening, we're going to put that aside because I cannot have two amazing life coaches on here and not ask you guys my three entrepreneur questions. I can't have you guys on there because now I definitely want to know what your favorite tips are and some of the mistakes you made and some of the research you like. So with that being said, I'm going to start with you, Laura. And the first question, the big entrepreneur three that I ask all my podcast guests is share a productivity tip, could be a habit, something that has helped you become more efficient as an entrepreneur that you can share with our audience. So, Laura.
Hard to pick just one, but my absolute favorite is oscillation. And oscillation is just the principle of balancing high intensity activity with low intensity activity. And so we all follow certain rhythms. We've all heard of circadian rhythms, but we each have an ultradian rhythm too, which is a rhythm that our body responds to where we need rest in a certain period of time. So about 90 minutes, top 2 hours, we need a break. And this isn't just any old break. This isn't picking up your phone and, shaking up your brain with more stimulation. This is a real break. So if you're doing something high intensity, like dentistry, like any entrepreneurship role that you play, you need to follow it with a break where, you close your eyes, you stretch, you get up, you walk, you get a breath of fresh air. The ultimate ultradian rhythm break is a 20-minute nap. Now, whether or not you have the capacity to do that, but I think everybody has a couple minutes that they can take and shut down a little bit and let your body recharge. And by doing this, you can come back to a high productive state again. When we tend to just blow through these breaks, our productivity decreases throughout the day. And that's why at the end of the day, you feel so crummy. You have no energy for the things you love to do outside the office. And so this has been a radical transformation for me in my entrepreneur business. I wish I would have known this when I was practicing dentistry. It would have been a game changer, not just for me, but for my team.
I am going to take advantage of that. I've never heard of that before. That's awesome. So I'm definitely going to use that. Okay, so Karen, what is an entrepreneur tip or habit that you have that you can share with others that could help
Yeah.
them out?
One of my favorite ones is something called white space. And this is something that goes on your calendar. Now, we are in dentistry, even on the days when we're doing work on the practice rather than in the practice, we're very busy and everything is scheduled. There's no time for those unexpected things that happen. So white space means allocating a period of time on your calendar, and you can do it every day. You could do it a few days a week. It could be your choice. It could be 10 minutes. It could be half an hour. Now, you can only allocate that space to something on the day of. So I can't allocate my white space tomorrow saying, oh, I'll look after that. I'll do that tomorrow and put it in my white space because that is for tomorrow. So it's there for those unexpected things that crop up. It could be there, in dentistry for when that team member does come in and is upset or needs a bit of extra time or you need to deal with something. The great thing about white space is that if you don't allocate something to it, you win and you get to choose how to spend that 20, 30 minutes that you've allocated for white space. So
Maybe
it could
taking that
be,
nap that Laura
yeah, you could take the
suggested.
nap that Laura was oscillating. You could spend that time, on a phone call with your sister or whoever that may be, but you get to choose how you spend that time. And this is a strategy that we've shared with so many of our clients. And we hear back from them saying, wow, I'm still using white space. How many years later? It's still on my calendar. That is a game changer.
That right there, I'm actually going to use both. What you guys said that I love that, and for me, yeah, my schedule is really packed, and that would be perfect for the random honeydews that my wife will call me and say I absolutely have to do this very second. So I think that would help me out,
Mhm.
because a lot of times that just kind of throws my schedule into chaos. Like, oh yeah, you need to run this and you got to pick this up. I'm like, what? You didn't tell me about that. Now I got to squeeze it in. I love
Yep.
that. That's something that I think every single dentist should take advantage. I love that. Now, not to put any pressure, you guys, because that was amazing, but we're gonna have to keep leveling up here. So my next question here is, share a book or a podcast or a YouTube channel, any of those things that that you like and you recommend, and why would you recommend it? And Karen, I'll start with you.
Okay, I'm going to go with one that would probably be a very popular choice right now, but Mel Robbins is one of my absolute favorite
I'm
podcasts.
listening to one of our books right now.
Yeah, and that Let Them Theory, is that the book you're reading?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, yes. And I'm
so
having my daughter listen to it too.
yeah, I think this is something that is just so impactful
Mhm.
for everybody and how whether you're listening to her podcast or reading the books, she has so many tools and strategies that I use day to day because I've got the idea from her. She's an ideas lady. She loves sharing them, and her aim is to make life better. And that let them theory, in terms of it's not mine to worry about, we can just let them get on with it, and I'm doing me. I think it's so powerful, and it's probably the top book at the moment. I think there's wait lists everywhere for it. Libraries have got wait lists of something silly like thousands of people to get it, but go out and buy the book or get it on audio and definitely read that one.
I highly recommend that. And I would tell people I would probably do both because, okay, reading the book, you can get the concept, but Mel Robbins has like
Yeah.
she's an
Mhm.
amazing speaker. So it's actually like really entertaining for me when
Yeah.
I'm listening to it while working out. Like I'm like, oh, I didn't, the way she said that, I didn't think that was a funny part of the book, but that was pretty funny there, you
Yeah.
know? So I would recommend, and I love that.
Both.
Thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah.
I would recommend reading it and listening to it because I think like there's some you'll get more from it when you actually hear her voice. So I love
Yeah.
that.
I agree.
Here, Laura, not to set the bar too high there because that was an amazing book. What is a like a book or a resource that you would recommend to others that's helped you out?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks for setting the bar there. That's a good one. uh, One of my all-time favorite books is a book called Mind Over Medicine by Dr. Lisa Rankin, and it just goes into the holistic part of healing. So not just the science, but the spiritual, the mind, the mental, the emotional piece of it. And it's just a real eye opener because there's, just like you talk about, like there's so much that goes into a person, a team member that comes into your practice to work that's going on in their life. And the same is true for us as a dentist. The same is true for our patients. And so there's a statistic in that book that just really hit home with me. And that was that when you're in a relaxed state, your body is more able to self-heal itself. And so when we walk into an operatory and we're depleted and overwhelmed and exhausted, that patient feels that and kind of goes into a hyperarousal, and that inhibits their body's ability to self-heal. And so our state and the state of our team members directly impacts the outcome of our patients. And that's just like right there. That just means, yes, we really need to focus on this holistic being of ourselves if we want to impact our patients. And it goes beyond our patients. It goes into our community. It goes into our loved ones. And so that book for me was just a real eye opener, and I'd highly encourage anyone to read it.
Well, that's definitely going to be on my list of books to read, and it actually makes a lot of sense of why you're so passionate about what you're doing here, right? Because you're not only just talking the talk, you're actually walking the walk because you've been through this yourself. And I think that's really important. I think that's something important with anybody when they're thinking about, hey, I'm going to work with a certain coach. Um, does this coach actually practice what they're preaching there? And obviously, you both just sharing these resources here, you actually do. We're gonna go and talk about something that might be a little uncomfortable for some people, but I feel like is where most of the learning occurs, and that is the mistakes we make. We see so many times on social media. Social media is like a double-edged sword. It's really good to connect with people and get inspired, but sometimes when you see highlight reels over and over, you're thinking, "Man, I'm such a loser. Like this person is just so awesome." But what we don't realize is that these people are doing amazing things. Those amazing things sit on top of a foundation of a lot of disappointment and mistakes. And so, in that spirit, share a mistake. If you're like me, you probably made a ton, so it's hard to choose one. But choose one that you made that you learned something significant from, that others can learn from as well. So, Laura, we'll start with you, and Karen, if you can share. So, Laura, share a mistake that you made that you feel like others can learn from.
I think that a mistake that I've learned from that I continue to make actually is not listening to my intuition.
Mm.
And it just happened actually. This is a light story, and then I'll talk about one in dentistry. But a light story was over Thanksgiving. I was picking up one of my kids from Union Station here in downtown Denver, and there was this big North Face display. They had taken all these duffel sacks and made them into like a Christmas tree, and there was a guy standing on top, and they were filming. And I'm like, "That's Alex Honnold." And if anybody doesn't know Alex Honnold, he's a famous climber. Okay. I'm like, "That's Alex Honnold." And my husband and my son were like, "No, that's not, that's just some." And I'm like, "That is." Anyway, we walked away. A couple months later, I'm on Instagram, and there is a story of that day, Alex Honnold at Union Station. And anyone that stopped, he invited them to go climbing with him. So that was my intuition that I didn't listen to. But in dentistry, probably one of the ones that still kind of hits me in my heart was I had a hygienist who I absolutely adored. She was phenomenal, just phenomenal hygienist that needed to go down to part-time because of kids. And I thought I needed a full-time hygienist. And the numbers, the practice consultant all pointed to a full-time hygienist. And so I had to let her go because I didn't have room to bring in, it wasn't working out. So I had to let her go. And I brought in a full-time hygienist and changed the energy in the practice. It was not a good fit, and I ended up having my first hygienist back part-time, and she actually ended up doing exactly what a full-time hygienist did at part-time, because she was that good. And so my initial gut was, how do we work with her? How do we do this? I was a mom myself. I understood her position where she was. And I look back at that and I get a little emotional, because my intuition said, work with her, figure it out. We can figure this out. And I didn't listen to it. And it was like a hard road. And luckily she came back, but I could have lost her for good.
Yeah, wow. What a great story there. And it's my mom always tells me when I was younger, she's like, ignore your gut feeling at your own peril. She used to say that. It's like if you
Right.
feel something is not right, there's something going on. If you need to talk to someone like that, but if you ignore it, it's at your own peril. So thank you so much. And that's something that honestly we're all gifted. We're all gifted with some kind of intuition, and especially you ladies. That's why it's called ladies' intuition or women's intuition, right? But yeah, again, something that we all can relate to. All right, Karen. So yeah, I mean, Laura's just like, she just raised the bar back on you. So no pressure there, but share like share a mistake that that you made that you learned something significant from that we can learn from.
Yeah. Well, I think from listening to the two of you talking about the intuition piece, maybe all mistakes are somehow based on not listening to our intuition.
Mhm.
Because my one gets to that point too. And so mine goes right back to when I was a baby dentist out of dental school in England. And I'd done my postgraduate training after dental school. And the practice where I was at, they offered me to stay on as an associate. And they had, like, it was a very different deal to the deal that all my friends who graduated from dental school and done their postgrad training were getting. It was just paid in a different way. The remuneration was odd. And they sold it to me as if I was going to make so much money and I was going to be so rich by doing it this way and it was going to be great. And I think the first couple of months, or when I actually took an interest in what was I was actually taking home, I earned less than my assistant by the time that they had deducted things off me, that they'd taken money off for this, for that, for whatever. And I really should have listened. And then I stayed and tried to fix the situation and asked them for a different arrangement, which kind of, they didn't like that, that I was probably catching on, but that this wasn't a good deal for me and it was a very good deal for them. And my mistake was is I stayed in a toxic environment way too long than I should have done. At that first sign that this wasn't right, I think I should have made the decision to say, right, I need to look for something else. And that was then backed up that when I did actually tell them I was leaving, they just set out to make life really difficult for me in everything. Like they took away my assistant. And in England, you can't work without a dentist, can't work without an assistant there. So it meant that I couldn't go to work. So it was just, I should have listened again to my intuition. This seems too good to be true. Can this actually work for me? And when things aren't right, you can make a change. You can choose a different path, whether that's at the beginning of your career or even in the middle of your career. It's never too late to make a change and do something differently. So I stuck it out for too long.
Well, that's definitely a lesson that you can also apply to your personal life as well.
Mhm.
100%, right? So I absolutely love that. And again, those are two, and that's why I love this particular segment because if we can somehow, when you're, watching and listening to this podcast, if someone can avoid one of these mistakes, right? I think we've all done our job there. That's our gifts as human beings to each other to help each other navigate life because it's very difficult. And if we can help them not make a certain mistake, then their life is that much better. We've left things much better for the next generation there. So that's why I love that. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now, with that being said, I think that we've established why this is so important to get this type of coaching, not only for ourselves, right? I mean, 100% there, but also for our team as well. With all the stories that you shared and all the advice you shared here. So for those who are, they want to learn more, they watch this podcast, they've been following you, maybe they saw you at that event, and they want to take that next step. What is the process for those to take the next step? And whoever wants to answer that, I'm fine with that. But what's the next step here?
You start, Laura, and I'll finish off.
Awesome. Well, if you're slightly curious, we host a monthly webinar. It's free. It's 40 minutes. It's no sales zone. It's highly valuable information only. And it's all on energy, managing your energy. And we do that once a month. The next one is coming up February 20th. And so the easiest way to look for that is to find us on social. So we're at the Mint Door Club on Instagram. And we have a YouTube channel at the Mint Door, and we also are on LinkedIn as well.
I'll make sure I'll have that all in the show notes there to make sure they hit it into the webinar there. But yeah, pretty much everything you need to find is on the website. They actually have a really amazing website, and answered a whole bunch of questions there. So definitely want to make sure we have that on the show notes. So the webinar, and then Karen, like, okay, let's say after the webinar, like, okay, I want to get started. Is there an application process, or how does that work?
Yeah. Well, Laura and we both love to chat. And that's really the next step in this, is that we will meet you for, again, no obligation, just a conversation where we really want to listen and understand what is going on in your life and your practice that we can support you with, because we don't have a cookie cutter, one size fits all solution, because this has to be tailored to what your needs are for it to be successful. So we really listen carefully to what that is. And then together between you and us, we co-create what it is that you are looking for. And then we can put that plan into action, whether that's a whole team day, whether it's one-to-one coaching with members of staff, whether it's a group workshop, say for just the hygienists, and how often that's going to be. And it will fit with whatever you want it to look like. So we're just really excited to get to chat to people, because that's how we learn how we can help you.
I love it. I love it. So before we go, I saved the hardest question for last for you guys, and I'll start with you, Laura, again. Why is this program so important to the dental profession, and also why is it so important to you?
I think that I think dentistry has the opportunity to really have a shift in not only how we take care of our patients, but how we take care of ourselves. And that it's imperative for us to take care of ourselves if we want to bring our best selves to the world in service to something bigger, which is, I think, what everybody went into dentistry for. And then it kind of gets bogged down with a lot of other things. And so it's bringing that focus, and that it's okay to focus on you. And so I think that's really imperative for us to elevate dentistry to the next level, where our patients, our communities feel that shift in us. We are examples to them. And it's important to me because, I feel like I went through that journey. I landed in that dark space that I don't wish upon anyone. And I've, with the help of others, got out. And so for me, this is bringing back what I have learned and helping the next person. And again, if I can help one person, I mean, wow, that just warms my heart. And so, like you said, I think that is the human goal, is to learn, go out, learn, make mistakes, and come back and help the next person. Hold out that hand and help them so that their transition, their journey is a little easier.
I think we all set off into the world of dentistry as dental students with really high hopes and really we were super excited and we were going to be dentists and it was going to be amazing. And then it makes me sad to see so many people have a default answer that they don't feel good because they're a dentist or because they're in dentistry. And this is why it's so important, because through being able to implement the scientifically proven strategies, tools, and techniques, and everything that Laura and I share, you can be a dentist or be in dentistry and feel good. It's not one or the other. And you can, and that's what we all hoped for and dreamed, I think, when we went into this. We never went into it saying, I'm going to be a dentist because I want to feel terrible. No, we wanted to be good. We expected to be good. So that's why it's so important to the world of dentistry, because you can feel good and be in dentistry. Why it's so important to me is I was very privileged when I left dentistry because I moved from the United Kingdom to America, and I had a period of time where I couldn't work. And that gave me an opportunity to step away and look back at dentistry from a different angle, from a different perspective. And at that point in time, I was like, I am never going back near dentistry again. Like, I am done. Like, take this opportunity, go do something else. But that privilege showed me and taught me, and through the learning that Laura and I have done and all the resources that we've, taken on board, we've found that it doesn't have to be that way. And we now know that we can support people to live that life where they can feel good. And I think that's why I'll tie it up with a bow. It's that reason. It doesn't have to feel this way. We can feel differently.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's the best way to end this particular episode there with your personal whys, but also why us as a profession needs to level up, right? I mean, we get better all the time. Thinking about, when we were in dental school and how our instructors treated us, right? And now how we treat our newer dentists now. I think that's the best way to end this. So thank you so much, Karen and Laura, for being a part of this episode. For those who are interested, you already know the best way to get, we'll have in the show notes, but please reach out. Or you can do what I like to do and just DM people out of the blue. I'm sure they love that as well. So Laura, Karen, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure.
And everyone, we'll see you guys next time.